So the secret weapon question is how you pull out buying criteria specific to your prospect. And that secret weapon question is forcing an intention upon someone who inherently is unintentional. Most people that come to the call with a marketer, they're just like, I want to get more money. Okay. And specifically, what are you looking for in a marketing partner? Results. And so what ends up happening is there's a lack of intention, which creates a lack of urgency, which makes them never buy.
This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgenson.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgenson, and today I'm really excited. We have as our guest, the founder of Prospecting on Demand. He's a mindset first marketer. He's a heart surgery survivor, which is just wild. And he's the only guy I know that has stocked the Miami Dolphins, which is a weird thing all in its own. He's helped hundreds of agency owners to shed the hustle culture and to build a business in a way that they can still live a life they love. Welcome out to the show, Alex Schlinsky.
What's up, Tyler? Thanks so much for having me. Yes, being a Dolphins fan is a miserable life experience, but I'm ride or die. Ride or die. Go Panthers, though. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, so I'm happy.
There we go. Yeah, for the 5 people that watch hockey in America. Dude, Alex, I'm so grateful to have you here. This is an episode that's been a long time in the making because I've known you for a few years and I've known your reputation for longer than that. And you're a guy who has a strong reputation of being kind of the anti-bro marketer and really a heart-first marketer. And I want you to zoom way back, man. When was that first moment in your life where you realized you were an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say like when I was a little kid, both my parents were entrepreneurs. My mom ran an art studio for a decade and had like over 1,000 students all by herself and was extraordinarily successful at that. My dad, who was a funeral director for almost 2 decades, quit and became his own, business owner and entrepreneur himself. And so I think I was just kind of brought up into a household that just really facilitated the idea of like reaping what you sow, earning what you've put your work into. There's a time and place for everything, for work and play. And I'm a hard ass worker, I think is what it comes down to. So I think kind of blazing my trail in school and realizing that I'm good at school, not just from like regular smarts, but from working really hard, I think was one of the initial realizations that I could more than likely achieve almost anything if I had put work and time and effort into it. And I think that was probably where I started realizing I'm going to need to kind of carve my path. I don't think I'm necessarily employable.
That's, it's funny. There's always that side of the coin is like when you believe in the whole reap what you sow concept, it's really hard to be in a job that doesn't benefit necessarily like, hey, I put in extra effort. Well, here's extra pay. It's like, no, thanks. You're just gold star. Yeah. And so, it makes a ton of sense. When, what was your first like entrepreneurial endeavor?
Yeah. So I think the first time that I had any sort of like opportunity to carve my own path is 2 kind of very differing experiences. And since you brought up the Dolphins, I think it's a perfect, relevant point to bring up. So first of all, when I was in high school, before I went to college, I had the intention of going to like pre-law and becoming an attorney. It's a very like in thing in my community to do that. My next door neighbor was an attorney. So I worked with him as an externship in my junior year before senior year of high school. He was like, oh, why do you want to become an attorney? And I gave him like the whole spiel of like wanting to make a difference in the world and that I'm a good arguer and, can convince people. Needless to say, obviously became good at sales coaching because of that baseline. And I'll never forget, like he hit me with the school of hard knocks. Like being an attorney is the worst thing ever. I hate my life. Here's all the reasons why. And I never really had anybody talk to me like that in the way that I grew up. And some would say that's sheltered, which I wouldn't necessarily disagree with, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was just such a huge wake up call at like 17 or 18 years old to have someone that you look up to and respect and like is in your opinion, respectful and, accredited job. He's like, I hate it. I hate my life. I'm like, wow, it's so crazy. But he was actually the person that started my like entire career trajectory because Facebook had just come out with business pages at the time. And he was like, I think this is going to become a big thing. correct, sir. Very much correct. And he's like, I want you to post for me every day on Facebook. This is before they had ads, right? So I would just post for him on Facebook every day. And then, if Tyler Jorgenson lived in the area, it'd be like, hey, you might like this post, and this is Mancus Law. And now suddenly he was getting cases from it. And so going into college, I actually had a business already, which was a marketing agency. I put it in quotes for those of you that can't see it, because I had no idea what a marketing agency was. I didn't know social media posting was a business. I didn't know it was a business. I'm just like, I'm a great hustler. I'm making money. And I had like 10 clients pay me $1,000 a month to post on social media. And that type of money at that time was like astronomical. It was unreal. So that was like one of the really important first ventures. But just to close the loop on the Dolphins thing, because it's very relevant as well. When I was considering like what I wanted to do with a career, if I didn't have the intention of becoming, some level of marketer, business owner, agency owner, prospecting on demand creator, like none of those things were my intentions when I was younger. When I was younger, and still today, unfortunately, I'm a very diehard sports fan, and I love the Miami Dolphins. So, I had thought, why don't I do like writing for the Dolphins? I know everything about them. I spend way too much time about it. Why don't I do some writing for it? And so I wrote like an email to like, I don't know, like almost 500 to 1,000 online blog sites at the time, just to get exposure, right? Like, let me post, let me get these opportunities. And I had a couple responses, and one of them actually offered to pay nothing, by the way, which is hilarious. Listen, $1 per 1,000 views, which is hilarious. It's nothing. The website averaged like 1,000 views per article. So basically $1 per article, but hey, that's better than $0, right? So I was like, amazing, great. Okay. So now like that I have this job, I'm credentialed for the Miami Dolphins, right? They're like, no, that's not how it works. Like you have to go now to the PR department. And I'm like, oh, so automatically they approve it? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went online, I found the PR director, and I called Tyler every single day. I called for, I think, 2 or 3 months straight before Dolphins training camp. And every day I would get the same objection from like the liaison of Jason Jenkins, who was the public relations director of the Dolphins at the time. And she would say, oh, Alex, Jason's at lunch. He's in a meeting. He's at here. I could take a message. And I just had this mindset at the time, like, I'm pretty confident that I could hear no more times than they were willing to say it. Now, that sounds really sexy in retrospect. I don't actually remember what I was thinking because that was like, 15 years ago. But in general, I believe that's what I was thinking, hopefully. Because I was just like, well, what's the worst that happens if at, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock every day, I make a 5-minute call to get rejected? Like, what's the worst thing that happens? And then one day she's like, oh, Jason's in his office. And I'll never forget that like elevator hold music in the massive amount of panic, Tyler, that I had of like, I have no idea what I'm going to say. I'm not prepared for this at all. And so I get Jason on the line. Jason Jenkins, Miami Dolphins PR. How can I help you? I'm like, Jason, Dolphins fan-sided. Help me, media. That's probably what I said. He's like, great, we'll see you at training camp. And that was like about a week later. And so I went to every practice at training camp as a certified media member. I went to 5 Dolphins games that year as a certified media member by myself. I did it completely by myself. And it was probably the thing that I was most proud of in my like young adulthood because I had never really accomplished anything near that. I think most of my other accomplishments were related to school, not exactly the best athlete. So I didn't have a lot of those accomplishments. But in general, like that accomplishment was something that, regardless of money, could never be taken away from me. I didn't make any money doing it, which is why I stopped doing it. But in general, it was absolutely incredible. So I'd say those two things were how kind of the entrepreneur fire started.
Absolutely. Now, all of your early stories really talk about you willing to go the extra mile, willing you to work like crazy. And this didn't like really go well in the long run, right? So there was a big moment, and I teased it a little bit when we first talked about it, but there's a big moment that happened in your life that led to you writing your book. Tell us a little bit about your book, why you wrote it, what happened.
Yeah, so the Anti-Hustler's Handbook, first of all, written pre-ChatGPT. Everyone loves asking that, like, how much of AI? It's like AI wasn't a thing when I wrote the book, so it's kind of crazy, which is wild. I feel like it would have helped, honestly, but whatever. Took me a long time to write, almost like 3.5 years to write the book. And it was a huge amount of effort to do. The biggest reason and the catalyst for it was I had open heart surgery when I was 29 years old, when my wife was 5 months pregnant with our first child. So obviously really crappy life experience. If anyone listening to this experience or this podcast is dealing with something like challenging health-wise, mental health or physical health for you or your loved ones, first and foremost, just praying for you. Most importantly, find the help that you need. And if I could be a resource in any way, feel free to reach out. I found out I had a congenital heart defect when I was 18, but they're like, oh, you won't have to have surgery until you're probably like 60, which just a crappy way to like live your young adulthood with the insight that you have a defective heart or defective heart valve, and knowing that surgery is basically imminent, but not exactly knowing when. So I did a test once a year, every year, called an echocardiogram. And then once they call me back, they're like, you got to come back in. I'm like, well, I haven't had to come back in any other times. Why do I need to come back in? They're like, oh, you got to come back in. So it doesn't take, someone super smart or intellectual to understand what the underlying reality was. So went in, said, you need to have the surgery. And then COVID happened. So it was crappy. We ran our first POD event. We've done 17 now, which is insane, Tyler.
Wow.
So we ran our first POD event, and I was scheduled for March 2020 to have the surgery. That was postponed to June because of COVID, was postponed again because of COVID. My wife got pregnant in that midst, and then I had it in October. So I think the entire reasoning for the book was most of the time that I see and speak with entrepreneurs in every walk of life. So like entrepreneurs that are like agency owners or coaches or SaaS providers, or like entrepreneurs that run their own chiropractic company, or an attorney or a doctor that are like running their own practice. I think problems right now are just very esoteric in general for most human beings, and business people particularly. So they'll say like, okay, what is your challenge? And like, I'm not making enough money. And what that does is that like alleviates and creates a Band-Aid for what the actual like core problem is, which whatever it is for each business owner, like, oh, it's specifically that we're relying only on referrals. It's specifically that we don't run ads. It's specifically that we struggle with conversion. It's specifically that we don't follow up. Most of the time, it's just this esoteric problem, in the same way that it's an esoteric goal, and also known as moving the goalposts. Like, what do you want more of, Tyler? More money. How much? More. Okay, when you get more, what do you want now? More. And I think I fell into that trap with blind hustle for like a 10-year period, because I was new, I was young, I was invigorated, I was excited, and the game was the chase. It wasn't that you captured the money, it's that you captured a little bit of the trail of money, but then there's always more money to go capture. And so like metaphorically, I think I became this world-class hunter that's like going out and getting the kill, bringing it back to my wife. And before, she could scream, we have enough, the fridge is full, I'm already like out there with the spear, like, who am I killing next? And I think that's a very common obstacle for entrepreneurs in general. But then when you have like a medical health crisis, especially at such a young age at 29, most people have some medical health crisis. Unfortunately, God willing, it's like later, like 60 plus ideally. Unfortunately, a lot of people have it like in that 40s area where they're like wake up call. Most don't have it at 29, I would say, is the reality. And I think that just really changed me, especially so like desperately wanting to be a dad. My dad had a near-death experience when I was younger, and he lived through that, which is an incredible blessing. And like, I really wanted to be with my son, and I wanted to give more to my wife and to myself and to my child, and of course my business and community. But I realized that all of my energy and time and focus was on hunting and hunting more money. Yes. Was it to help people? Of course, no question. But like, let's be realistic here. What was the real thing? What was the like main motivator? It was, I can accrue more money. For what, Tyler? Nothing. There was nothing. There was nothing that it's not like I want to buy some like $2 million yacht, I want to like randomly go to New York City if I want on a flight the next day and stay at a nice hotel, which is what, like $2,000? Okay. Well, we could have done that like when you were 20 years old from the money you were making. So why do you keep doing this? And so that's what I wrote the book for. I wrote the book for the concept that people don't have to let other people dictate, including me, what success means, or let society tell you have to over optimize and like you have to just never die, and you have to just keep getting better, and you're never good enough, and you suck as you currently stand. And if you don't lose more weight, and if you don't make more money, and it's just so exhausting, honestly, because most people never actually put in the work or time to identify what they really care about, what they really want to accomplish. And then they're wondering why they're like so anxious and stimulated all the time and can't relax and frustrated and dissatisfied with where they're at, and their marriage is broken and their relationship with their kids are broken. And I'm not saying this sanctimoniously. Like, I still struggle with it even after the fucking surgery, which makes it way worse. It makes it way worse. So in general, that's what I wrote the book for, in the hopes that more people could see the light on, hey, if maybe you just take a little bit of time to clarify what your specific goals are, not because your parents told you so, or because your spouse told you so, or because you think it's important because some influencer you watch that has no idea who you are says it's really important. I think you'd be in a lot better position. And that's what I wrote it for.
It's wild how, one, you mentioned that you still struggle with it, right? You're like the author 100%. Of the book of the anti-hustle, but these are old habits, and it's a little bit ingrained in who we are, right? And so what advice, probably to yourself, but also to those that are still struggling, right? What advice do you have to someone who might be hustling but not know why?
Man, it's really hard. So there's a couple things that I've done that has been really helpful. So for me, it's like mantras that really help me. So there's a couple that are really, really impactful. I'd say probably the most impactful for me is Seneca, which is a Stoic. And I think you know what I'm going to say, Tyler, but we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. I think that one's a really powerful mantra for myself, to remember that I'm always going to be my own worst critic, that I'm never going to be satisfied with the progress, because the progress inherently is an esoteric thing, because it's very hard to match when you are in anti-hustle or you're hustling. It's like, what is the mix? And it's not the same for every person. Maybe for Alex Schlinsky, it's I take Fridays off for 5 weeks in a row. That's progress. Maybe for someone else, it's I work only 2 hours per day total. So it's different for every person. And the problem is, not only is it different for every person, it can also differ for that person in a season of their life. And I think that's what I've found, that I'm just like, unfortunately, and I wish this wasn't the case, like internally in my mind, I feel like I'm just great at punishing myself and just being disappointed at myself, where I think a lot of people very strongly resonate with that. They resonate with not being good enough parent, spouse, leader, and disciplined, right? Like all of those things. And they just never focus on anything that is positive. So the second mantra is critics math, right? Critics math's equation is 1,000 positive comments plus 1 negative comment equals 1 negative comment. And the more that I take time to like reconfirm, like these are the things that I've done that are great, personally, professionally, and for others too, because at the end of the day, I'm like I like serving people. That's how I'm lifted up. That's how I feel at my best. That's when I'm in flow state, when I'm making a real impact into someone's life. And so if I have like a list of those things, the data that you're looking at of I made this impact and I did this thing and I accomplished this thing, it really overwhelms that one bad thing that happened. And then I would say third and lastly is give yourself grace, but not a pass. And I think that one has been really, really important to me. I've provided in historical context, especially to clients and friends, which has been a really hard boundary for me. Like, I'm not good at that, as you know. Like, my clients are friends and my friends are clients. And it's like, oh, well, this makes it kind of a weird, uncomfortable relationship at points. Great. But it's a weird kind of environment to be in. But what I found is I give extraordinary grace to my clients and friends because they're human beings. They're faulty. And, like most of the time, they're not going to do some like horrendous thing. Usually it's like not great and it's, fixable. But then you do something, right? Myself. And it's like, you are the worst. How could you do this? You are a piece of ish. Like, and you're just like, what is happening? How is this? What is going on? Like, why is that happening? And I've just found that in general, like, if I can remember that concept, like give yourself grace, just not a pass. So, okay, grace, what can I learn from it? So trying to be more pragmatic, because I am a great, logic, person. That's a weird way to say it. Really articulate, Alex. But in general, like this is what I coach on, right? Like sales psychology, decision making, etc. But the ability to control your brain and like be a monk about it, that takes forever. It's like you want it to be instantaneous because it's like, I know how to do it all in this third party way. Why can't I do it for myself? And there's a reason why the cobbler's shoes is such a cliche, why it's so common to see that. And so give a grace, but not a pass. That's another big one for me.
I think that's awesome. You've mentioned a couple of the businesses that you're involved in, right? You really, one of the things you help is you really focus on helping agency owners and businesses to scale. You teach sales psychology, and you run a big event like with Prospecting on Demand. Tell us a little bit about what Prospecting on Demand is and what you help the members accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run three companies. So I've had my marketing agency since 2010. Again, those first 4 years were kind of like not really a company. It was just, I thought it was a side hustle. So one of my things, Tyler, when I'm like doing a presentation is like, I had a six-figure marketing agency for 4 years and I didn't even know about it. I was like the marketing angle of like, what the is he talking about? I'm like, well, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know what that was. I was just like, I work with attorneys. They're like, oh, so a marketing agency. Right. Exactly. I don't know. So I've had that for a long time and it's amazing business, thank God, and going extremely well. That led me to want to build like community and culture. So I think the big thing for me is, I grew up in a religious environment in a very like close community of like, blood family and then like your other family, right? And I think that environment was very, very helpful and useful in growing up. And then going to college, you have to kind of create your own community, right? There's some natural communities, whether it's like religious or like sports, as I've mentioned, not really my skill. But anyways, point being like there's some of them, but they're much smaller than your original community. And also it's new, it's implanted, right? It's not like my community growing up I was like 2 years old to, 18 years old. This one is you're 19 years old and you're meeting other 19-year-olds who have completely different background than you. And you're like, wow, this is really a big challenge, something I never experienced before. And then you finish college, you're like, oh, I got through that 4 years. And now you're in the ocean of the world and there is no community unless you go back. And so I'd be behind this computer and like, this is the loneliest thing of all time. So I invested in some masterminds. And as soon as I did that, I'm required to be the loudest person in the room. It's in my contract with every person I work with. So like, of course, as I'm in the masterminds, I'm like, I could be doing this. I should be doing this. And that's where the intention of POD started. To impact people. And I was like, I know I'll be good at this. October will be our 10th year in business for POD, which is mind blowing. It's actually unreal. Like it's hard to fathom. It's been a boutique company from day one. So we don't work with more than like 50, 60 people at a time on purpose. Most of the reason why is for that community environment. I think that has certainly capped our financial gains, but it was never really a big financial goal of a company. It's definitely successful, ranging from $1.5 to $2.5 million per year at a 20-30% margin is a good business, no question. But it wasn't a maximized business. It wasn't like, how do I squeeze all of this dry? Right. It was like, how do I do that while also providing fulfillment to myself and to my team and to my clients? I believe big, like in this 4 provisions model, myself, my family, my team, my clients. And that's how I tried to build POD. I think the challenge is continually finding that fulfillment 10 years in. And one of the things that I found that's been incredible is like watching alumni from the past iterations of the company kind of take root and like build it in their image. And that's been really cool and something that I could have never imagined because, all the time, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I'd get asked in coaching environments, like, how do you envision POD in 10 years, in 5 years? And it's like, my brain just doesn't work like that. Like I'm trying to envision tomorrow right now. So it's really hard for me to get there. But if you told me 5 years ago, like Richard Sargent, one of your best clients ever, you're one of the most amazing people that he's going to like be the CEO essentially of the company. Like, what are you talking about? So it's kind of crazy how it's happened. But yeah, inherently, POD is just a coaching program and mentorship community for entrepreneurs, namely marketing agencies and SaaS companies that want to build a better business.
And one of the main things that you're known as is someone who can teach sales. Like sales psychology is a big part of it. But if somebody is listening, maybe they're just getting started as an agency owner or they're just getting started in business. What's one of your biggest or like secret weapons of teaching sales? Like give them a tidbit, right? What can they apply today?
It's crazy that you said that. So one of the secret weapons is literally the secret weapon question. Literally. Not joking. We didn't plan this beforehand. It's literally one of the main elements of the coaching process. So the big thing that I'm known for in this space, and like what people colloquially would know me for if they're looking me up, is usually the one called close framework. So basically teaching people how to do qualification, demoing, and closing in the same conversation without it having to be like, Tyler, you're a good fit. Let's set up a demo call tomorrow. And then Tyler never shows up for the call, which is exhausting and very, very common in the space. So basically, the biggest thing is relevant to what I had referenced earlier, which is very relevant to this concept of a problem well explained is a problem half solved. To get morbid for a second, but it's helpful to understand this concept. What scenario is better, right? Finding out that someone has stage 1 cancer or stage 4. Obviously, both suck, but in the scenario that you're in, of course, stage 1 is better because you caught it earlier and thus it can be fixed. In the same vein, stage 4 is much worse because, of course, you went through 1, 2, and 3. You just didn't know that. You didn't have symptoms, you weren't aware, or you neglected them, right? If you now take this in, thankfully, a much lower stakes game in a business context, what's like the level of potential cancer that this business owner has? And what are you diagnosing them on in a sales context? And as we spoke about, they don't know. They can't explain it properly. What they tell you is they have a problem. What is the problem? Not enough money. How do you solve it? I make more money. How do I make more money? With you, apparently, in marketing. What type of money do you need to make? More. None of those things are clear enough, right? So anyone that's like a parent on the session will resonate with this stronger. I have a 4-year-old kid. If he comes to me and says, Daddy, I want a treat. If Tyler and I had an hour on this webinar or on this session, we could easily name 1,000 things that fit the treat bucket. So I go get him a Chips Ahoy cookie. And then he's like, Daddy, I don't want that. I want mint chocolate chip ice cream. It's like, okay, well, that does fit the treat bucket. Why didn't you just ask for that originally? And this is such a great exemplification of what happens in sales conversations. They have 100 conversations with the same type of marketer bro, and they don't know how to differentiate. They don't know how to differentiate the prices. They don't understand the mechanisms. All they care about is what's the end result? Will I make more money? But how much? What is it going to be? They don't know any of that stuff. So they never make an investment that they're confident in, and ultimately it really hurts them. So the secret weapon question is how you pull out buying criteria specific to your prospect. And that secret weapon question is forcing an intention upon someone who inherently is unintentional. Most people that come to the call with a marketer, they're just like, I want to get more money. Okay. And specifically, what are you looking for in a marketing partner? Results. And so what ends up happening is there's a lack of intention, which creates a lack of urgency, which makes them never buy. And so it's, I need to think about it. Let me talk to my partner, send me a proposal, also known as we're never going to work together. So the question is, once you have clarity on where they're at, where they want to be, what the obstacle is, and how fast they want to get there, which is what I call the 4 W's framework, you can tell them with confidence, I can help you. I'm certain that this is the right product for you. Let me make sure you're confident in that too. Outside of just, of course, getting the result, inherently, right? What specifically are you looking for in your ideal marketing partner? And then push back at them when their initial answer is like, oh, just results. Make them tell you, I want someone that works on the weekends. I want someone that will give me feedback on a weekly basis. I want new creatives being launched every week. I want someone that's going to help us with the follow-up. I want someone that's going to make sure that our CRM is set up correctly and automations are done right. Now they're saying things, even if it's not intentional, like they wrote it as a journal before the call, it becomes intentional right then on the most important part, which is the call itself. And you close those loops. I actually do work on the weekends. We do give you the updates weekly. We launch new creatives every single week, and we help you with the follow-up and the automations. Every single thing you just mentioned is exactly what we do and exactly why you're the right fit. Now, I know that I'm even more confident in supporting you. And that way, now we have the buying criteria from what used to be, I just want a treat or I just want more. Now we have the mint chocolate chip ice cream so we can deliver that. And once it's there, they're like, I want to buy that. And that's the goal.
Love it. I think hopefully if you just watch that or listen to that, rewind and listen to it again, because that can change your next sales call and make you money immediately. And that's the power of Alex Schlinsky. Alex, as we get towards the end of this, you and I are such believers. I mean, we've had so many amazing conversations about life well outside of business. And you and I believe that life is so much more than just the jobs that we do and the careers we create and the businesses that we do. What is one item on your personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Okay, well, I just accomplished one that is not relevant to me, but it is important to, like, meaning I didn't do it, but the Panthers won the Stanley Cup, and I was there in person, which was amazing. So that was like
cool.
a big thing. So
attending that is a bucket list thing.
That was incredible. So watching them win in person was an absolutely amazing experience. The big personal one for me that I'm working on is trying to go to the gym consistently every single week. I had a 3-month streak going, and then we took a trip for a week, and I've broken it now for the last 2 months. So I got to earn it back. That's the big one for me. I really, really need to get back and disciplined on it. It's really like outside of my normal character. So I need to like put the pedal to the metal and make that happen. But that's a big one and important for me.
Yeah, I gotcha. Alex, it's so great like hanging out with you, talking to you about business and just about, how to live a more balanced life. And I know for all of us, it's an ongoing practice. It's not something you just figure out one day. Where should people go to learn more about you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on every social platform, alexschlinsky.com, on Facebook, everywhere. I'm trying to post more on YouTube, but also very hard to do. But in general, you can find me on all those platforms. Pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing everything, Alex. To all my biz ninjas, wherever you're tuning, listening, watching, wherever you may be, it's your turn to go out and do something.